We are back, Internet. Toast to you. Still drinking the Clearly Hazy double IPA from Goodwater. So good. What do we got to look at today? Well, I don't have the pouches here with me, and I kind of feel bad about that, but they're decent little pouches for the knuckle roller, the skull knuckle roller from Nautilus. So this was kind of a surprise. Marco Wong reached out to me and told me he was going to be sending me some stuff, and I've had these probably about 2, maybe 3 weeks. I kind of feel bad it took me this long to kind of get into it, but I'm actually glad I did. Yeah, it's been at least 3 weeks that I've had these, but they are they're neat. It took me a little bit to kind of figure out what I wanted to say about these, and I'm glad that I kind of took the time to use these, to carry these, to kind of figure it out, because my kind of initial impressions, Internet, not gonna lie, my initial impressions were kind of like, yeah, it's all right. You know, it's a knuckle roller. I haven't been huge into knuckle rollers, but yeah. So well, let's just get into it. So let's get this guy going here. The little skull knuckle roller guy here. I should have looked up the name. I'm pretty sure it's something like that. So 95 grams, 95 grams, 95 grams. That's because these are all the same material, but they just happen to have like a coating of like this clear, like stainless steel kind of coating, this clear brass kind of coating, and then this one had a bronze kind of coating. Now, I actually tumbled this in my tumbler for about 24 hours, just because I kind of like, this has that like, almost like the Chunk did, like this kind of clear, almost like this clear coat on, and it feels super rugged, super durable, and I think that's the way to go, because it kind of softens everything up. But I kind of like the feel of metal, and then since I tumbled it, I wanted to try and soften some of these edges, because some of these edges, like you look at this for a knuckle roller, this was some of my issues initially, and then they've kind of all gotten softened down after tumbling. But then the copper one, the copper look, see, copper, yeah, I wasn't as huge of a fan of. Nothing wrong with it, just for me, like copper isn't really my preferred color. I'm kind of coming around a little bit with the way some things patina and having that Voda change things up a little bit. But as a color, I do prefer like a brass or a stainless steel. So I figured, well, if I'm going to tumble anyone, let's tumble the copper one. So so in that time, I've been playing a little bit more around with knuckle rollers. I got the Flow from Damn Designs. And after getting the Flow, I kind of played around more with the spin pin and the revolver and this guy to try to get a feel for the different knuckle rollers and see kind of what I did and didn't like. And I feel like, especially with as large as my hands are, again, I've got pretty large hands, I feel like most knuckle rollers that I see are a little chunkier, a little bigger. So I think what I appreciate in a knuckle roller is not so much kind of the bulbousness and the weight, but rather a really small, lightweight, fast little thing, despite liking my tungsten spinners and stuff like that. So this guy's got a pretty decent amount of weight, and it's got some pretty decent, like, I mean, these are relatively large little knobs on the end here. So it is a little heavier to spin. I actually noticed a little bit of fatigue with spinning this as much as I had been spinning it, which is a good thing, right? Like if I'm spinning it that much, I definitely am really enjoying knuckle rollers a little bit more. So, but it is kind of a heavy thing. So I think for those of you that like the bigger knuckle rollers, which again, it seems like most of the knuckle rollers are, I think this is going to be right up your alley. My biggest concern with this knuckle roller is with the weight and some of these corners here being a little sharp or hot spotty, but I haven't really found that to be an issue. It feels like it would be, like when I'm spinning it, I can feel that edge, and I feel like, man, if I do this for a while, I feel like I'm gonna rub my fingers raw, but it hasn't really happened. If you know, if that makes any sense. Like it feels like it would, right? So yes, I didn't mean to say it feels like twice. It feels like it would, but it doesn't. The head doesn't seem to actually do that. So. The other thing that's kind of interesting with this, unlike any other knuckle roller, it's actually a little flat in the middle. Like, so this here is wider than this is here. So when you're spinning it, it almost always, the heads want to go sideways. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, right? But like the heads want to spend most of their time, like it doesn't really go around my knuckles like that. Can't even do it. So, and I think it definitely feels flatter, especially up in like in this portion here, it's definitely thicker. Once you get to the actual middle, it might be closer to Yeah, that might actually be close to a circle, but everywhere else it's definitely thicker. And the way the weight is on the skull is being wider there than there. It definitely throws it around that way, but it's a very nice knuckle roller. I was kind of, again, my initial impressions were kind of like, nah, it's a little too big, it's a little too heavy, it feels like it would kind of hurt my fingers. But especially after stone washing it and getting some of that clear coat finish off, which again, I think makes it a little smoother, and it's part of the reason it doesn't give you issues and protects that finish, especially since they kind of do like this weathering in there to give you the detail of the skull. It's gonna stay looking like this. It's not gonna patina, it's not gonna be an issue. If you're the average Singaporean, if you're Benko, you're not gonna have issues with like a smell from this, like the smell, yep, smells fine. And patina and causing any wear issues on your fingers. So, but again, I like the feel of the material of the metal. I don't mind a little bit of that smell. I don't mind that. So, I mean, I think it kind of looks cool with the way, like, obviously my stone washing stuff couldn't get all the way in there. It kind of left this, a little bit of the copper, see, in there. So I think it looks kind of rad. So yeah, I don't know too much else, what else to say, like any particular way I knuckle roll. So I'm not one of the ones that does a lot of like the flips and the spins. I can't really say to that, but I see the people that are good do that. But like going down like this, not a problem. Going back up isn't too much of an issue on the front. I find that with it being a little larger, not quite as big, if I'm going up this way, it's fine. If I go down this way, up the back, it's fine. But this particular move, if I'm coming back down, getting this pinky under, especially on this hand, I'm not as good with my left hand. You can see it's a little awkward coming back up, and again, it's weird looking at myself doing it. But when I'm going down, this particular move right here, this pinky, and this pinky is also a little jacked up, right? Like I've actually damaged this pinky in a bike accident, so it's not as fluent. But that's, I think it's partially because it's not super long, but it's a little bulbous. Yeah. So in sort of like my way of knuckle rolling, this works fine. So, yeah, I dig it. I think that, again, for me, it doesn't really fit in my particular style because I appreciate the smaller, lighter ones a little bit more. But for what it is and the way that it's designed, it's a cool look, right? Like that's a pretty rad look. I think it's well executed in terms of, I imagine this is cast, not machined, because I mean, it's just a lot of detail to machine out, and you can see some of the brushwork, and you can see this line in the middle where it's, again, I almost guarantee it's cast. So I don't know what that really means in terms of like the manufacturing and the processing and all that sort of stuff. These guys go for 58 bucks. So for 58 bucks, again, with knuckle rollers and not knowing as much as I know, and the fact that this is probably like a cast metal with a decent amount of detail and a decent amount of material, 58 bucks isn't bad. And my other hobbies, you know, like Warhammer and stuff like that, casting and that sort of stuff is I'm much more familiar with. But how they're doing it for this particular material, I can't say. So 58 bucks seems kind of reasonable. If anything, it seems a little steep in terms of, for me, I don't think I would pay that for this, only because it's a little too big, I think, for my style of fidgeting. I think from like a quality standpoint, it's absolutely worth it. I just think for me, it's just not my particular style. How's that? I'm kind of hedging the lines here, right? Like you can tell I don't want to say anything negative, and I don't think there's a lot to really say negative other than personal taste and personal opinion, but that's part of the reason you watch this. So, but it fidgets pretty well, and I do appreciate the texture of this as you spin it. It's kind of interesting. Most, you know, the knuckle rollers I've had have been all smooth, so there's kind of a bit of sensation lacking when you're knuckle rolling, where this, you know, there's a tactileness to it. So, but yeah, we dig it. We dig it. I've been carrying it and I've enjoyed carrying it, so there's something to be said for that. So, and it looks cool. Again, it looks pretty badass. It's kind of one of those EDC things, like, depending on who you're showing off to, it's kind of like, well, that's cool, what is that, right? Where if you show somebody this, like, you might not get kind of the looks that you would get. So, anywho, internet, there you have it. I guess we'll just keep calling it the skull roller, the skull knuckle roller, and I'll have the correct name down below if I got that wrong, because I'm a terrible person. I'm a terrible reviewer. You shouldn't even watch my channel. Just go and drink beer instead, internet. Let's bring him in close one more time. Pretty rad look, right? Anyway, internet, kisses.